everyone, welcome back. My name's Morgan. This is my channel, Pisces Paperbacks, and today I'm going to do a little bit late November wrap up. I only read 3 books in November, so this will be pretty quick. I'm kind of having like a cozy day today because it's literally so cold outside. I just can't deal with the weather, so I'm focusing on how warm it is in here. And what's cozier than talking about books? I have my knitting here. I probably won't be knitting that much because I started this other sweater with cables and I have to actually look while I knit. I can't not look, I have to pay attention, so I'll be knitting a little bit, but not that much. Anyway, I hope you guys are doing well. I have my tea right here. My cat's playing with a toy over there if you hear anything, so just ignore that. So let's dive on in. I read 3 books in November and I would say it was good. It was a good month. You actually saw a vlog of one of them, Dark Places by Gillian Flynn, and so I will be a little bit more brief about that one, but I will happily talk about the other 2 books that I read. So, okay, I'm already going to do a disclaimer. The first book that I finished in November, I didn't really read the whole thing. So it was Lost in the Neverwoods by Aiden, who is the author of one of my favorite YA romances, contemporary fantasies that I've read in a very, very long time. If you've watched any videos on this channel, you know that I love Cemetery Boys, but I wasn't as into the idea of Aiden Thomas's second book, Lost in the Neverwoods, which is a Peter Pan and Wendy inspired retelling situation. I was trying to knit and talk to you guys, but I literally can't because I can't with this project. So I'm just going to start over. Lost in the Neverwoods is about Wendy Darling. She's 18 and applying to colleges and stuff and thinking about her future. But it's really hard for her to move on because she's still stuck with the fact that when she was 13, she went missing for about 6 months along with her 2 younger brothers. And she was the only one of the 3 of them to return. And it has deeply affected her relationship with her parents and just her entire life. And so now she is kind of having visions of Peter, this boy that she used to tell bedtime stories about, and having episodes where she's drawing unconsciously and she keeps drawing the same face over and over again. So when this boy with that face shows up in her life and he's like, I need your help, she's like, what the fuck's going on? So that's kind of the premise. I actually got the audiobook for Lost in the Neverwoods back in March and I started it and I read the first quarter or third and was like, this isn't for me, I gotta give it back. And so I was like, I'm just not gonna read this one, it's fine. I loved Cemetery Boys, but this is just not the vibe. And so I was fine with that. But then I actually recommended this book to one of my coworkers who I talk about books with, and she had been reading another book inspired by Peter Pan, and I was like, well, if you like that one, you might like this one, even though I didn't really. And so she read it and was like, you have to read it, I think you might like it. And I was like, okay. So I got the audiobook back and I got it and I was chugging along and I was like, I can't do this. So I actually skipped 4 hours of the audiobook to get to the end and find out what happens at the end. And I can confidently tell you that I don't feel like I missed anything. I'm not going to rate this book because I don't think that's fair. I didn't read the entire thing. I skipped a large chunk. And I also read it with 6 months in between my reading times. But I think I just don't care at all about Peter Pan. I know that a lot of people have very nostalgic or childhood-based attachments to that story. And I just don't think that I was ever really a Peter Pan kid. And I just don't really care about that story at all. So I'm gonna say, if that sounds interesting to you, I do think there was an interesting twist at the end. If the premise itself appeals to you, I would say go for it. There's nothing wrong with Aiden Thomas's writing. I just didn't find the characters particularly compelling, and to me, it was just trudging along, really, so I just was like, not for me. And then there was a long gap, and I think I read Dark Places, which is a thriller by Gillian Flynn, and it's about, I don't remember her name, but she is the sole survivor of her family getting massacred when she was 6 or 7, other than her brother, who was found guilty and has spent the last 20 years in jail. So now the money of like the donations and stuff has run out. She's like, I don't know what to do. And she kind of gets sucked into this group of like true crime people who are trying to prove her own brother's innocence, even though she believes that he has done it. So it's kind of like that set up, like what really happened, why did it happen? And so you see her investigation in the present day, as well as flashbacks from the past, from her mother's perspective and her brother's perspective and other people as well. And I actually liked it. And I struggle with thrillers. Often I find there's a section in the back half that is just like boring. I'm just like, get to the point. But I did enjoy this book. I really liked the main character. I liked how angry she was and forceful. And I just thought that it was like a really interesting perspective, and I really enjoyed it. And I'm excited to read Gillian Flynn. Only has 3 full-length novels and 1 novella. I read Gone Girl when I was in high school, and I really, really loved it, even though I've never seen the movie, I've never reread it. And now I've read Dark Places. I read her novella, The Grown Up, which is about 100 pages, and I did enjoy it. I listened to the audiobook. I thought it was very funny and interesting. And then her last book is Sharp Objects, and I have been very much recommended that show as well as the book from 2 of my best friends. So I will read it eventually. And then the last book I read in November was actually in an effort, I was going to do a whole vlog about it, but then I just like never continued. I was going to like vlog the whole series before reading the 3rd one, but I just never got into it. So I actually reread Gideon the 9th, and I read this in like 2 days. Guys, this is one of my favorite books of all time that I've ever read. First, it's so beautiful. It's so funny. I actually read it, the ebook of it, because it's available on Kindle Unlimited right now. And so I listened to the audiobook the first time, and I love the audiobook narrator. I love the audiobooks, but I definitely think that in terms of like plot comprehension, reading it physically or with your eyes with an ebook is the way to go for this book, although I still do recommend the audiobooks. I picked up on so much more this time. I think I liked certain characters more and disliked certain characters more because I was reading it rather than hearing the audiobook narrator, because I think the audiobook narrator she's so good. She just makes people more likable. So yeah, but I loved it. It's also so interesting to read this. I haven't gotten into Harrow the Ninth yet. I read like the prologue and I haven't read the rest of it. So I haven't gotten into this again. But I finished it before I listened to the audiobook the first time. And so having read this, it was so interesting to read this and see the foreshadowing, the subtext, things that you literally would not even notice or remember reading it the first time. And then reading it the second time, you're like, that offhanded comment that has nothing to do with anything else is so important. And you're like, Tamsyn Muir is just a mad genius. I don't know what she does with her free time, but it's gotta be doing something for her brain, because the layers, the subtext, the planning involved of writing this book and then this book is wild. It's intimidating. It's amazing. It's life-changing. I think about this book all the time, and now that I've reread it, I've actually gone on a rampage of reading Gideon the Ninth fan fiction, which is some of the best written fan fiction I've ever read. Like, I feel like there's this expectation of tone trying to emulate the source material. And with TV shows, it's more tone rather than writing style, right? Obviously, because there is no written version of stuff. And I think I could get into this. I don't want to get into this, but the fan fiction is so good. And it's also fun because I'm not a very good critical reader. Like, I try my best, but I'm not very good at, like, analysis without guidance. I can get in there, and once I'm in there, I can kind of wiggle around, but I need to be led to the point where I can kind of make that jump. And it's so funny because getting, like, through the subtext of fan fiction, I'm learning other people's analysis of the books, and I'm like, oh, that's what that meant. And I feel so stupid, but I'm like, I'm glad other people are smarter than me and better writers than me and put that shit out for free. So if you haven't read this, I haven't even said what it's about, which you should know what this is about. Gideon the Ninth is about Gideon, and she is an indentured servant kind of, to the ninth house, which in this universe is a planet in the Empire. And they're kind of like a weird death cult. And she just wants to get out of there. Like, she hates it there. And during her most recent escape attempt, she's stopped by Harrowhark, the heir of this planet. She's called the Reverend Daughter, but she's the heir. And she's like, I have gotten the chance to go to this other place and possibly become a lictor, which is like an immortal, all-powerful knight / advisor to the Emperor / God. And she's like, I need a cavalier to come with me, and you, Gideon, are going to be my cavalier. And once we're done there, you can go free. And so they go to this place, and it turns into kind of a murder mystery. And there's necromancy. It's so fucking good. And first of all, everybody should read this book. So this is an appeal to you. You should read Gideon the Ninth. If you start reading Gideon the Ninth and you're like, I hate this writing style, it's not going to get better, so maybe you should pass on it. But if you're like, it's fine, it's funny, I'm a little confused, you're going to be confused, and I would deeply encourage you to push through, because this book, as well as Harrow, part of the best parts of them is the fact that you are confused until you're like, oh shit, I know what's happening right now. So it's so good. 5 stars. I have to say, 2022, both because I've only read, now I've read about 70 books this year, but until December, where I've been listening to a lot of audiobooks, but before December, I was going to be like, okay, I'm going to finish the year with 65 books, which is nothing to scoff at. Let's be absolutely clear. That's a good amount. I'm very happy with that. But it's also about half as much as I have been reading in the past years, and I was like, also not having a lot of hits, and I was this book has really made it clear to me that 2022 has been the year of rereads for me. The best books I've read this year have all been rereads. The Mount Trilogy by Megan March, The Sum of All Kisses by Julia Quinn, Gideon the Ninth. Those are my 3 favorite books that I've read this year, and all 3 of them are rereads. In terms of new books that I've read this year, I think I maybe only have 2 5 stars, and only one of them is notable that I can think of right now. So it's kind of a downer of a year in terms of new books for me, but it has been a year of joy with my rereads, and also joy with my smutty Kindle Unlimited monster romances. So I'm not going to complain too much, but those are the 3 books that I read in November. This has been a nice quick little video. I think I'm actually about to start a reading vlog, so if you see me in this exact same spot in this exact same outfit, don't say anything. All right. I hope to see you guys next time. Let me know what you've been reading, and I hope you enjoyed the video. Bye.